My lover gave me a fake STD test result to keep me monogamous. The day I found the fake lab report hidden in Melissa's desk drawer was the day my world crumbled. 2 years of what I thought was love suddenly revealed itself as an elaborate scheme of control and manipulation. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where it all began, before I discovered that the person I trusted most had invented a medical diagnosis to keep me trapped in our relationship. For context, I'm 28 years old and had been dating my girlfriend, let's call her Melissa, for about 2 years. We met through mutual friends at a backyard barbecue, and things just clicked between us. She was smart, funny, and seemed incredibly honest. That last part is important because, as it turns out, it was all an act. Our relationship started like any other. We went on dates, got to know each other, and eventually became exclusive. Melissa always came across as a bit more jealous than most people I'd dated before. She would ask a lot of questions about my female friends or coworkers, check my phone when she thought I wasn't looking, and sometimes even drive by my apartment unannounced to surprise me. At the time, I brushed these things off as her being a little insecure but ultimately caring about me. Looking back, these were major red flags I should have paid attention to. About a year into our relationship, we had a big fight about trust. I had been texting with an old college friend who happened to be female, and Melissa saw the messages. Nothing inappropriate was said, we were literally discussing a mutual friend's wedding, but Melissa lost it. She accused me of cheating, said I was keeping secrets from her, and stormed out of my apartment. We didn't speak for 3 days, and I was starting to think it was over between us. Then she came back, tears in her eyes, apologizing for overreacting. She said she had been cheated on in the past and sometimes her insecurities got the better of her. I understood that, who hasn't had bad experiences that affect future relationships? And I forgave her. We made up, and things seemed to go back to normal. A few months after our big fight, I started feeling weird. Nothing major at first, just tired, a little achy, with occasional headaches. I figured I was coming down with something and tried to power through it. But then I noticed small red spots appearing on my chest and back. They didn't itch or hurt, but they definitely weren't normal. When I developed a persistent fever that wouldn't break with over-the-counter medicine, I finally decided to see a doctor. The doctor examined me, asked about my symptoms, and then asked a question that caught me completely off guard: had I engaged in unprotected sex recently or had any new sexual partners? I told him no, I'd been in a monogamous relationship for over a year. He nodded but still suggested running some tests, including a comprehensive STD panel, just to rule things out. I was shocked but agreed to the tests. I had never had an STD in my life and had always been careful, but I trusted my doctor's judgment. He said the results would take a few days, and I went home feeling confused and a little scared. When I told Melissa about my doctor's appointment and the tests, she seemed strangely calm. She didn't freak out or accuse me of anything, which was unusual given her typically jealous nature. She just nodded and said it was better to be safe than sorry. Something about her reaction felt off, but I was too worried about my health to really think about it. 3 days later, I got a call from the doctor's office asking me to come in to discuss my test results. My heart sank. I knew they wouldn't ask me to come in person if everything was fine. I scheduled an appointment for the following day and spent the next 24 hours in a state of anxiety, wondering what they had found and how it was possible. I didn't tell Melissa about the call. I wanted to know what I was dealing with first before having that conversation. The next day, I sat in the doctor's office, palms sweaty, as he entered the room with a folder in his hand. His expression was serious, and I prepared myself for bad news. "Your test results came back positive for syphilis," he said. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. Syphilis? How was that possible? I hadn't been with anyone but Melissa for over a year, and we'd both been tested at the start of our relationship. The doctor explained that early-stage syphilis could be easily treated with antibiotics, and he wrote me a prescription. He also suggested that my partner should be tested and treated as well. I left the office in a daze, prescription in hand, trying to make sense of it all. There were only two possibilities: either Melissa had cheated on me and given me syphilis, or I had somehow contracted it another way, which the doctor said was extremely unlikely. Either way, I needed to talk to her. When I got back to my apartment, Melissa was already there, sitting on my couch. She must have used the spare key I'd given her. Before I could say anything, she asked about my appointment. I took a deep breath and told her the diagnosis. I expected shock, confusion, maybe even anger or accusations. What I didn't expect was the calm, almost rehearsed response she gave me. "I know," she said. "I got tested last week because I wasn't feeling well either. I was going to tell you once I had more information." Something about her story didn't add up. If she knew she had syphilis, why wouldn't she have told me immediately so I could get tested too? And how come she hadn't shown any symptoms that I'd noticed? But I was too overwhelmed to question her story at that moment. We both took the prescribed antibiotics, and I scheduled a follow-up appointment for 2 weeks later. During those 2 weeks, things were tense between us. I couldn't shake the feeling that Melissa was hiding something, but whenever I tried to bring it up, she would get defensive and remind me that STDs can lie dormant for years. She suggested that maybe one of us had it before we even met, which seemed unlikely given our clean tests at the start of our relationship, but I didn't have a better explanation. At my follow-up appointment, the doctor ran another test to see if the antibiotics had worked. This time, he called me with the results. "Everything looks clear," he said. "The infection has been treated successfully." I felt relief wash over me, but it was short-lived. As soon as I hung up, doubt started creeping back in. Something about this whole situation still felt wrong. That night, I decided to do some research online about syphilis, its symptoms, transmission, and treatment. What I found confused me even more. My symptoms didn't quite match the typical presentation of syphilis, especially the red spots and fever combination. I also learned that syphilis testing is not always 100% accurate and that false positives can occur. This information planted a seed in my mind. What if the test had been wrong? What if I never had syphilis at all? The next day, I called my doctor and asked if we could do a different type of test to confirm the diagnosis, explaining my concerns about potential false positives. He seemed a bit surprised but agreed that it wouldn't hurt to be certain. He ordered a more specific test called a treponemal antibody test. 3 days later, he called me with the results. "Your test came back negative," he said, sounding confused. "There's no evidence of syphilis infection, past or present." I felt a strange mix of relief and confusion. How could the first test be positive and this one negative? The doctor explained that the first test might have been a false positive, which can happen for various reasons. He apologized for the stress it had caused me. After hanging up, I sat in silence for a long time, trying to process this new information. If I never had syphilis, then what had caused my symptoms? And why had Melissa claimed she had it too? A terrible thought began to form in my mind, but it seemed so outlandish that I tried to push it away. Could Melissa have somehow faked or manipulated the test results? But why would she do that? I decided to do more digging. I logged into my patient portal to look at the actual test results myself. What I found shocked me. There were no test results for syphilis in my portal, not the positive one from the first appointment or the negative one from the follow-up. I called the doctor's office and asked about this. The receptionist checked my records and told me something that made my blood run cold. According to their system, I had never been tested for syphilis at all. Now I was really confused. Had I imagined the whole thing? No, that was impossible. I had taken antibiotics. I had seen the doctor. I had discussed the results with him. Something very strange was going on. I decided to visit the doctor's office in person to clarify things. When I arrived, I asked to speak with my doctor directly. After a short wait, he invited me into his office, looking concerned. "I'm a bit confused," I told him. You told me I tested positive for syphilis, but now the receptionist says there's no record of that test. He frowned and pulled up my chart on his computer. That's odd, he said. Let me see. According to this, you came in with symptoms of fatigue and a rash. I prescribed a general antibiotic for what looked like a bacterial infection, and then you came back for a follow-up. He looked up at me. There's no mention of syphilis or any STD testing. My mind was racing. Had the doctor forgotten? That seemed unlikely for something so significant. I described in detail our conversation about the STD panel and the positive result. He shook his head, looking increasingly concerned. I never ordered an STD panel for you, he said firmly. And I certainly never told you that you had syphilis. I would remember that kind of diagnosis. As we continued talking, a terrible possibility began to take shape. I asked if there was any way someone could have accessed my medical records or impersonated a doctor when calling me. He said it would be difficult but not impossible, especially if the person had some of my personal information. I left the doctor's office with my head spinning. Only one person had access to all my personal information, knew about my appointment, and had a motive to make me believe I had an STD, Melissa. But I needed proof before making such a serious accusation. When I got home, I began searching through Melissa's things while she was at work. I felt bad about invading her privacy, but I needed to know the truth. In her desk drawer, hidden under some papers, I found something that confirmed my worst suspicions, a fake lab report with my name on it, showing a positive result for syphilis. Next to it was a voice recorder device with a built-in voice changer. I sat on the floor, holding these items, feeling sick to my stomach. Melissa had created a fake test result and pretended to be a doctor or nurse calling me with the results. She had orchestrated this elaborate lie to make me believe I had an STD. But why? The answer came to me as I thought about the timing. This all happened shortly after our big fight about trust, when she had accused me of cheating. She wanted to make me believe that either she had cheated, which would make me wary of ending the relationship for fear of seeming hypocritical, or that I had somehow contracted an STD despite being faithful, which would make me too embarrassed to leave her or start dating someone new. Either way, it was a twisted attempt to keep me in the relationship. When Melissa came home that evening, I confronted her with what I had found. At first, she tried to deny it, claiming I was paranoid and that she had no idea what those things were doing in her desk. But as I laid out all the evidence, the fake lab report, the voice changer, the confirmation from my doctor that I had never been tested for syphilis, her denials became weaker. Finally, she broke down and admitted everything. Through tears, she explained that she had been terrified of losing me after our fight. She said she saw how some of my female friends looked at me and was convinced that if we broke up, I would immediately start dating someone else. The fake STD diagnosis was her way of ensuring I would stay with her, out of guilt, shame, or fear. I was speechless. The level of manipulation and deceit was beyond anything I could have imagined. This wasn't just a little white lie or a moment of jealousy, this was calculated psychological manipulation that had made me question my own health, faithfulness, and sanity. I told Melissa to pack her things and leave. She begged me to reconsider, promising to get help for her jealousy and trust issues, but my mind was made up. I couldn't be with someone capable of such an elaborate deception. I watched as she packed a bag and walked out the door, still pleading for another chance. After she left, I sat alone in my apartment, trying to process everything that had happened. The person I had trusted and loved for 2 years had created an intricate web of lies just to control me. My symptoms, which had prompted the doctor's visit in the first place, had likely been from a minor bacterial infection, as my doctor had actually diagnosed. The antibiotics had cleared it up, which added credibility to Melissa's story about us both having syphilis. In the weeks that followed, I went through a range of emotions: anger at Melissa for her betrayal, embarrassment for not seeing the signs earlier, and relief that I had discovered the truth before things escalated further. Melissa continued to call and text, alternating between apologies and accusations, claiming that my inability to forgive one mistake proved I had never really loved her. I eventually had to block her number. It's been 6 months since that day, and I'm still processing what happened. I've been to therapy, which has helped me understand that none of this was my fault. My therapist explained that Melissa's behavior showed signs of serious psychological issues that had nothing to do with me or our relationship. I'm sharing this story as a warning to others. Sometimes the people we trust the most are capable of unimaginable deception. What Melissa did was not just a breach of trust, it was psychological abuse. She used my health as a tool to manipulate me, made me question reality, and tried to trap me in a relationship through fear and shame. Looking back, I can see the warning signs I missed, the extreme jealousy, the need to control who I talked to, the unexpected visits to check up on me. These weren't signs of love or even normal insecurity, they were red flags that I ignored because I wanted to believe in the relationship. I'm slowly rebuilding my life now. I'm more cautious about who I let in, but I'm trying not to let this experience make me bitter or untrusting. Not everyone is like Melissa, and I refuse to let her actions define how I approach future relationships. If you're reading this and something similar is happening to you, or if your partner shows signs of extreme jealousy and control, please take it seriously. Trust your instincts if something feels off, and don't be afraid to ask questions or seek help. No one deserves to be manipulated or controlled, especially by someone who claims to love them. And if you're like Melissa, please get help. This kind of behavior doesn't come from a healthy place, and it only destroys relationships rather than preserving them. Real love is built on trust and respect, not fear and deception. I don't know what the future holds for me, but I do know that I'm better off without someone who would go to such extreme lengths to control me. Sometimes the hardest lessons are the most important ones. I just hope sharing my story helps someone else recognize the signs before things go as far as they did for me.